the tools and the space.
Or people to even talk to.
Or the people. Because there was so...
Most teachers wouldn't...
Yeah.
You know, be willing to have a conversation like that. You're much more open about things like that than
and
a lot of
that's what's so key, I think. And so I really started feeling like I was, or we as a culture were failing these kids. And so a lot of the, I sort of just started, and then I looked to see, okay, so what kind of stuff is out there to put in the classroom and who is doing stuff like this? And there's just, back then, was some really, really bad stuff out there. Like, you know, the textbooks, you know, like,
oh, yeah.
Whatever. Like, well,
not to mention now there's abstinence-only education.
Which is, don't even get me started. Yeah. So so I started. That's good. We should.
Yeah.
So I realized that there wasn't a lot to be intimidated by because not a lot was out there at that point. So I started writing curriculum, and then I started I would just show up and start talking. And really, the thing that pisses me off about our culture is that everyone talks. Young people are so stigmatized, and you all are somehow, there's this culture of mistrust, and you have this stereotypes that you've lost your way. And I just feel really strongly that that if there are, first of all, I talk to about 500 teenagers a week, and not a lot of them are lost, but if they are, I feel like we sort of are leading them there. Yeah. So I think if we simply get out of young people's way and give them some tools,
very good point.
They really have just, you know, I've learned so much more from teenagers than I ever met or learned in graduate school.
Yeah.
I hope none of my professors ever. They probably don't listen to this show, right?
But it's surprising. Yeah, no, don't worry. A few professors listening. But, yeah, it's surprising to see how much more kids know about themselves. I feel like adults sometimes really don't realize that we actually do kind of have some ideas of where we're going, and we make you know, I don't know. I mean, I definitely agree with that.
And I think that when we lack when young people lack the places to practice, I think that, you know, there's a term that I use called the setup, which has a lot of elements to it. But one of them is that, just like you talked about before, there's, you know, let's say, you know, a senior in high school, you know, a young woman who is like president of the debate team and, you know, has like a 4.0 and plays the violin and saves the world through community service and global warming over the weekend, is really set up to feel that she is assertive, and she is intellectually assertive. But that same young woman is someone who calls my number where teens call or email me when they are experiencing regret or have just made a decision that deals with regret. And that's that same young woman who was at a party and had some dude's hand on her thigh, and she was like she had duct tape over her mouth. It was like she felt gagged and silenced. That's the kind of assertiveness that it just so doesn't matter if you have an A in chemistry. If you can't honor yourself or figure out what the hell that even looks like in the real world.
Because you can't get anywhere with those qualifications and everything if you don't have personal assertiveness and, you know, standing up for situations where you don't feel comfortable like that. It's very true.
It's so true.
And what's the hardest part been for you of doing this job?
Wow, that's such a good question. I think two things. One is just the depth. I have such a passion for youth rights, and I love my students so much. And if any of them are listening or at some point, I love you guys so much.
You can tell too. It really, you can feel that.
Yeah.
And when it's not there, you can feel that.
I agree. I think that I hope that they can tell. But I think what's so hard is that I feel so honored to share in the lives of so many young people that what's really hard is when they do experience something that is so hard and difficult, and it's either trivialized or they feel that they can't connect either with their parents or with others in their life, and that loneliness, I really feel that on their behalf. That's really hard.
A lot of empathy with the students, it sounds like, is
very much
the most challenging.
Yeah, because I mean, God, I feel like a war horse at this point. I've really been doing this almost 20 years, and it's just never. My job is never boring. You know, it's never boring.
Yeah.
But it is hard to fight. It's more adults where I'll come into a school community or a group, and the kids will. God, they're just amazing with the questions that they have. They're incredibly intelligent questions. Really just, you know, can you give me the tools so I can navigate through the real world? And then having a school say, okay, great, now we've done that one day of, you know, drug education, or, thanks, they know how to put a condom on.
Yeah.
In 5 years we'll check in with you again. And the students are like, can we do this more often?
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have to be with me.
No one else is in that position where they're willing to give information like the people who do the job you do. I mean,
I think there's more, thank goodness, that you've had. I mean, the person that you had on with just the other week is an example of just so many more people coming
Vanessa
up.
Van Petten is who she's talking about. And it's true. There's a whole kind of new push, I think, for youth advocacy, because people are kind of realizing that we really are, I mean, of course, children are always the ones who are going to end up leading, the future world. And so it's important that when kids are having all these issues, and it's such a high-stress environment, a lot of what I talk about is college, and just how stressful that is for kids.
God, it's crazy.
Yeah, and so it's great that there's people like you who are starting to really realize someone needs to speak out for them. And have you come up against, I mean, you were saying you have, but what's it like working with these parents or teachers that are kind of almost going against what you're teaching? I mean, with sex ed especially, there's a lot of people who are very reluctant to realize that some kids will end up having sex, within the time they're in high school. How do you deal with those parents and teachers?
I've been really lucky to be based here in the Bay Area. That's really helpful. But I'm also surprised even around the country how schools have really come around, because they're realizing that this thing that people used to call character education or is important, just because they're seeing that, they're having the same discipline issues over and over again, or the same depression rates, or and realizing that what I emphasize is important. And so a lot of schools have really come around, and there's some amazing schools. And the parents,
very good to know.
It's always straight now that I'm a parent myself. I realize that the parents I work with, for the most part, they love their kids so much, they're willing to just say, okay, just tell me, what is I just want them to, I want to connect with them. And so, I feel actually far more lucky. I have, though, been escorted off a few school campuses.
Wow, what happened? Tell that story.
I have to do it without, it's so hard in my line of work because it's all anonymous. So much of the youth I work with, and schools.
Oh, I see.
Sometimes I would definitely want to protect their privacy, but there are schools that are willing to, they say that they want curriculum development, or they want me to come in and do a workshop, and I even give an outline of what my workshop is. And this is what I'm going to emphasize with your students. And then it's different to have sometimes some more conservative programs sit and actually listen to the workshop. And there was definitely one where I was asked to leave immediately. They even hired me my own cab.
What did you say? What was the words that
what's really amazing? Oh my God, Abby, it was I didn't even say anything like, masturbation, or I never said vagina.
Wow.
I said
good monitoring.
Yeah. I said
tried to avoid it.
I said I would warn, I think what I said earlier, that what you are experiencing outside the classroom can inform you as well, if not better, than what you're learning in the classroom. And
that was the thing that
freaked them out. And I just thought, oh well.
I wish you'd had time to get to the other stuff. Gosh,
exactly. I know. It was so funny too, because I heard from so many students after that workshop through email, like, okay, since you're not coming back, because I'm sure you never will.
Yeah.
But again, at least I got to some, and they had great questions and stuff.
Good.
So for the most part, though, I feel just so lucky. The schools and parents are just really, really just want teenagers to be happy, which is nice.
Yeah, and that's true. And these statistics are coming back, and people are realizing that. I was reading actually on your website, and you were saying they're realizing that certain types of education just aren't working, and it's plain statistics, and they're seeing these things that, it's like depression rates or pregnancy rates,
date rape,
and they have to try, date rape, and they have to try things that are more, no offense, but empathizing with the kids more than some of the other programs.
Exactly, they are realizing,
even if they're reluctant to.
Yeah, and your example of abstinence-only education. I mean, they had all the evidence, all the evidence after they passed welfare reform, and then after the evidence in even in 2006 when it came back that 88%